So we are on tour again. This time it's a road trip, and you might have spotted we have an extra member today.
We've got our third wheel.
Another Katie.
An extraordinary cinematographer.
And for those that listened to series 1, Katie is our PR expert and talked all about being an influencer and social media. And she's now joining us on a lot of our podcast trips.
Yep.
Sadly, no can of wine today, as we are in a car. So probably just coffee in a bit.
I'll start with the saddle. So this is actually a Second World War era saddle. It uses the steel arch pattern which came into use in 1898 with various modifications as it went through, but basically the same pattern. And you obviously get really good sparring clearance for the horse.
There's absolutely no knee rolls on this.
No, absolutely none. Yeah, they're not helping you out, Ellie.
No, I mean, nothing's going to keep you in that saddle, is it?
No, you have to stay on.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be easy. Sometimes it's just sort of standard walk, paced march from place to place, but you're also going to have to do cavalry charges across all sorts of terrain. I mean, there's some training photos that we've got from the First World War of literally having to canter down a probably about 30-degree angled slope. So it's quite a short slope. It's not sort of Hicksted Derby Bank levels.
It's the sort of thing you'd never do intentionally, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not something that you'd want to do.
Bolting horse territory, really.
Yeah, you're doing that, and you're potentially having to shoot at the enemy at the same time, or have your sabre out. So there's some serious horsemanship skills being taught to people who've maybe never sat on a horse before at that time, which is
Pretty
impressive.
Yeah.
And then they sort of come with sort of a variety of accoutrements. So we've got a horseshoe case here, for carrying spare horseshoes. They're attached to the saddle, and they would always carry a horseshoe case with spare horseshoes just in case one was lost. And they would have a troop farrier with them to replace any lost shoes, basically while on march. They did recommend trying to do hot shoeing even in the field. So actually there's things like mobile forges that could be fitted to a horse for the farrier to take with them. Yeah.
Wow.
So they could hot shoe in the field if they had to. Now the armies produce sealed patterns of all their equipment and uniform and various other items, so they can send those out to manufacturers to make sure they get it made to the right specification.
Okay.
And we have a lot of seal patterns in the collection, and just actually due to geography of where they were in the stores, I've ended up pulling out quite a few steel patterns today. But there's some quite interesting objects, and they were all issued and used of this type. But this one is actually a body sling for horses for veterinary use. So just like today, they go underneath the belly and hold them up. Previous label here.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, look at that.
Which is 1895.
1895.
And that's not the oldest label. That's the oldest label, and it's completely illegible.
Gosh, look at that.
So this would be used in the same way that we'd use a sling now with a horse in a vet hospital where it needs to have its weight supported.
Yes.
Wow. Just goes to show that technology hasn't changed that much with some things,
It really hasn't.
It's also the quality of how it was made, the fact that it's still so solid looking now.
Yes.
Even with it there. Wow.
Yeah, it's a bit grubby, that one, because the leather's going at the top there, but it is actually a really good solid piece of equipment. I mean, keeping their horses fit and healthy and bringing them back into service was really, really important to the army, because horses are a key part of their material at this point. It's their main form of transport. Cavalry charges and things like that are still really significant operationally, particularly at the beginning of the war when it's a war of movement. When you get later in the First World War and it's trench warfare, less so, although artillery horses are still vital during trench warfare because otherwise they can't move the artillery around at all. And in like the other theatres outside the Western Front, so say in the Middle East, cavalry are, they are the tool that are winning the war. Now this one's a little bit of fun because it's a rosette from an imperial horse show in Delhi, because the British Army was all around the world, sort of to the mid 21st century, when sort of breaking of empire, and there was a lot.
1928.
Yeah.
And there was a lot that went on in Delhi.
Mm.
But this very much ties into the sort of history of the army and sport. So soldiers are actually actively encouraged to participate in sport to keep their own fitness up and to improve their skills. And with regards to cavalry, that involved an awful lot of horse sport. Polo, for example, particularly in India, was huge,
Mm-hmm.
and lots of officers did it, and it actually really built on their skills around things like tent pegging, so the ability to basically throw themselves off the
Yeah.
side of the horse without falling off, and then pick something up from the ground.
Mm.
That's
They get back on.
Yeah, and you still see that like at Windsor, they always have that on display, don't they?
Yes.
Taking and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and that's something they still practice today because
Yeah.
it really does give them the skills. But also things like eventing. So eventing was actually developed by a Swedish cavalry officer to improve the horsemanship of his cavalrymen
Okay.
and the skills of the
So
horses
hence
that
having
they
to do all the
use.
disciplines.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot sort of cross-pollination between army and leisure riding, particularly in the sort of 19th to the early 20th century.
This item here looks very much like it might be clippers.
It is. So those are hand clippers designed specifically for hogging because they've got quite coarse blades. But they could also do similar hand clippers for coated horses, so you could clip, say, donkeys and mules quite effectively using those.
They're quite heavy.
Yeah, go.
They are. I mean, if you're going to do a lot of clipping on that, you're going to
Yeah.
get tired arms, aren't you? Plus, I think it's for someone with probably bigger hands than me.
Yes.
And we've got the world's biggest bit here.
Yes.
Put your hand next
Right,
to it for reference.
for reference.
This is.
I mean,
huge.
I put that next to my arm.
It's,
It is absolutely
That is
huge.
absolutely
I
crazy.
don't think I've ever seen a bit quite that big.
No.
That's a big horse.
It
that
is,
fitted
yes. I mean, that one is described
Amazing.
as snaffle large on its pack label because it is just that. It's
Literally
very
does what
large.
it says on the tin.
Yeah.
But it is a standard loose ring snaffle, isn't it?
It
It's
is,
just.
yeah.
It looks like it's been made for an elephant. It's massive.
Yeah. I mean, it will have been one of the ones that is used for draft horses.
Yes.
I was going to say, it might fit Joey from Warhorse.
He's
He's very
right,
large.
actually. It's huge.
But I mean, the cavalry do have a fondness, particularly in forms of the household cavalry, for the big horses.
Yeah.
Yes.
They do. I mean, most sort of First World War cavalry are not over sort of 15 hands,
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Okay.
15-2, and they would accept horses above 14-2. So anything above
Oh.
14-2, they would have been
Wow.
absolutely fine with.
Wow.
And mounted infantry, they would be generally 13 hands and up.
Wow.
Yeah.
That small.
Gosh.
That's
You'd
fascinating.
never thought that.
No.
They carry slightly less equipment, so they're a
Mhm.
bit lighter, and often they would operate in sort of hotter areas, so
Okay.
Okay.
South
The more
Africa,
economical,
Middle
being
East,
smaller.
yeah.
Yeah.
more economical, stronger, slightly better able to deal with the climatic
Ponies are generally
conditions.
just sturdier and better
Yes.
than horses, aren't
Well,
they?
yeah.
So.
Clever as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
So if there's something they've got to get themselves out of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, smarts are definitely
ponies are
important.
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the sort of Boer War campaigns, they were riding things up sort of 12-2 up, and these are adult men.
Wow.
I mean, we're not talking the 6'6" chaps. We're talking people probably about our size now.
Yeah.
So
But still,
Yeah.
you know, it
Not
still
the smallest.
seems, and, you know, and men obviously are heavier set than a lot of women. So
yeah, and you've got to add in that they were carrying equipment.
yeah.
But the reality is, the army actually, from sort of around 1890, their vets were saying no more than 20% of your horse's body weight can be on top of it at any one time. So basically, they were
Right.
still
Yes.
using the 20% rules then.
Rules.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Wow.
And obviously,
The curb bit.
yeah. So
And it's the curb
Beautiful
bits that
as
I
well.
think of more when I think
Yeah.
of cavalry
Yes.
and the cavalry horses.
certainly, if when you're in full ceremonial,
Yeah.
you are wearing both bits. It's a double bridle. But-
Ceremonial.
If it's standard, you're not necessarily going to have all the bits. Some horses, like today, were actually just ridden on a curb bit. Some of them were just ridden on a snaffle. I mean, officers, because they owned their own horses, it was a degree more of personal choice,
Mm-hmm.
except when they were wearing issue tack. But sort of your average issue tack did include a curved bit for
Okay.
most of the cavalry.
With quite
units.
ornate shanks, actually.
Yeah, well, this
hasn't
one
it?
actually says on the thing for state occasions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Regimental pattern.
So, wrapped up in polyester here because it's a relatively new acquisition and potentially may have woodworm, so we don't want to infect the rest of the collection. We have a First World War wooden cavalry training horse. So these horses were used for people who never sat on a horse before to get a feel of what it's like, and they have like the rockers over here which would actually give it a simulation of movement.
So it's literally a mechanical horse.
It's literally a mechanical horse. So all the fringes on the uniforms here, they're actually made out of twisted gold wire. So they're sort of, I think it's 21 karat gold in twisted wire.
Wow. So this is the Duke of Wellington's favourite horse's
Yeah.
horsehair.
Yeah, so Copenhagen was his chestnut stallion that he rode at Waterloo.